Hello and welcome. My name is Vex, and today we've got some pretty interesting news for Godforge. They've finally revealed what their weapons and artifact system is going to be. Spoiler alert, I pre-watched this. I don't really remember much because I sort of skimmed through it. But it's pretty unique, and I think this is what they were sitting on when they were talking about like not revealing too much like a year ago. I think this is what they were sitting on because it is pretty unique to the genre, and I'm interested to see more from it and to really sort of dive into the details. So let's get into it.
Hey guys, this is Simon from Fateless. This is probably the most requested video that I've had for a while, so some of the stuff we've been hiding under the hood, we're gonna release today and kind of go through some of the details. So what we're doing, we're gonna do gear, we're gonna do weapons, and
There's some good
imprints.
news in this
We're gonna
video.
do battle UI, and yeah, let's get into it.
I'm not going to talk too much about the UI.
60,000 subs on YouTube now. Thank you everyone who is following the journey. Really appreciate it. As a celebration of that, we do this quite a lot actually when we hit landmarks. I did share in the Discord.
Oh, right.
Of our
This is Shenlong.
dragons. Again, I'll link down
Shenlong from Dragon Ball Z fame.
the
He's
Discord
also a Shinto god.
down below. If you guys want to get involved, you can come and join that and get the leaks as they come out fresh.
Is it Shinto? Or is it Chinese? Long means dragon in Chinese, so maybe it's Chinese.
So, I guess what we're going to start with actually is the battle UI. We've been making some changes. Forget the blurry background image, doesn't matter, it's just a UI thrown over the top of an image. But
Looks
what have we
super
been
good.
doing? We've been trying to make sure that everything is as clear and clean as possible. Okay, so we've got obviously our enemy heroes and our hero in action. We've got on the left-hand side a kind of like scrollable who's due next for a turn.
This is interesting because there's multiple Musashis on the enemy team, right? I don't know which Musashi is the one that's going next. Because the meter underneath, as we'll learn, the meter underneath isn't their turn meter.
And if there's like a little red hint at the moment, that is an enemy. If it's not, it's your team. We might change this kind of redness, but we'd love to know your thoughts on it. But certainly the kind of like feel of team order or turn order, sorry, on the left.
Having to scroll kind of feels bad, but there's only so much
one
room.
that we like. We have got arrows depicting your affinity matchup. So double green means you're going to hit them hard. Yellow means it's going to be a normal hit, and red means it could be a weak hit. But again, there's just kind of like some logic around what that means. It's not the same as what you might have seen in other games, but I'll go into that in a separate video. But ultimately, there will be chances.
So Odin is a void character. It's not Odin. It's Zeus. Zeus is a void character, at least in this mock-up. I'm trying to figure out what they've chosen for the weak hits. Like, is water good against fire or grass? You know, like the Raid Shadow Legends versus the Pokemon one.
To land stuff based on these. Obviously, buff.
The turn delay passing from Final Fantasy. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, old Final Fantasy, even like did 10 have a turn meter? I can't remember.
Buffs and debuffs, red being a debuff, blue being a buff. You see your team on your portraits down the bottom left, and the enemies have theirs over their heads. The yellow bar is a turn meter bar. The red bar for the enemy is your health.
Oh, wait.
You see your team on your portraits down the bottom left, and the enemies have theirs over their heads. The yellow bar is a turn.
Do enemies not get ultimates?
Meter bar. The red bar for the enemy is your health, and for the green bar is your health for your team. And then if there's a shield, this is kind of like grey color. And then we've got affinity meter building up.
Oh.
I'd like to know your feedback on this actually, in this kind of like box. We're trying to show a lot of things
Oh.
without making it too complex for a brain.
I misunderstood this before.
So we're trying to to try and keep it as clean as possible. But this is basically an divinity, meter that's growing.
Yeah, you can kind of see like the box here has. They don't show it very well because you can kind of see it down in the bottom left underneath Simon's head. The box here is, oh, you can barely see it, like halfway filled. This one is like 90% filled. This one is filled. That's their ultimate meter. That's interesting. So the yellow bar is the turn meter. I don't know. If you have a turn meter thing on the left side, if you have a way to differentiate between heroes that are the same, I think the turn meter is like above the actual character is just redundant. That could just be the divinity meter. Or it could be, I don't know, something else.
And that will be how you unleash an ultimate ability. So for your heroes down the bottom left here, you can see divinity going up. When your ultimate is ready, we got this flame effect.
Nice effect. Yeah.
Aphrodite is ready. She's ready to unleash an ult. And on your turn, you would be able to click Aphrodite on any of your heroes and unleash her ult. So that's one of our kind of like key strategic things is using ultimates when you think it's going to benefit your team as a whole. So you can unlock some really cool combos of ults going off. So yeah, divinity meters here. So top right, we've got speed of play.
It goes up to 3x, which is super nice. But yeah, I can see what you're saying. Like, even in Dungeons and Dragons, you can delay your action for your teammate to go because you might want to do something after they've done something, but your turn is before them. It's a little bit, I think it's a little bit different because turn meters can be manipulated in this game, just like in Raid. So I don't really know how that would work out, but you can skip turn meter by just using an ult. So I don't know.
We've got auto gameplay on. We've got a pause, but also kind of way to cascade down the other options. So an info button, which will tell you.
I kind of wish you'd be able to click on a debuff and it would just show you like what the debuff is. Maybe on like bosses or something where like it's the main feature of the screen.
About your team and the debuffs you've got and that type of stuff. We've got a...
There's a damage meter. It's not like a DPS meter, but there's a damage meter. Oh my god. I hope that it's not sort of bare bones like this, like what character has done X damage. Like, that's fine. And there's like healing and shielding too. I hope it's maybe a little bit more interesting than that. But honestly, like, being able to test characters and seeing their damage is so good. It's so good. I really wish Raid had actual damage instead of just like the number that appears at the end of the game.
Damage, kind of like meter, or it would also have healing and shielding. If you guys want to have that up, it can be up the whole time, but you can just toggle it on or off. There's also a way to just watch the gameplay cinematic style. You know, we've gone for this kind of like cinematic cool view, so you can literally turn off the whole UI.
This is pretty cool.
And just have it running footage on auto, which is quite cool. We've got down at the bottom left your basic ability, your core ability, any passive skills, and then your hero will have their ultimate.
Okay, so these are just passives you can click on. I think that's what those boxes were.
We've got down at the bottom left your basic ability, your core ability.
Maybe, so he clicks this and like a description comes up so you can see what the passive is. And if it has a cooldown, it'll be on cooldown.
Any passive skills, and then your hero will have their ultimates. So that's pretty much the bones of the UI. We are looking to do an ability where if you've got auto running, you can turn off a skill that has a cooldown. So it's not going to eat away like your core ability if you're trying to save those for, you know, like the next wave of enemies or something like that. So
I wonder.
we've got some interesting
I don't.
that have pretty much the bones of the UI. We are looking to do an ability where if you've got auto running, you can turn off a skill that has a cooldown. So it's not going to.
So Raid has this with like the auto battle setup thing. Like you can tell the game run on auto during this wave, prioritize this attack. So I wonder if that's the system that they're trying to go for. Maybe they just can't. Maybe they haven't set up things right, or maybe the way this combat works is just not okay for that. I don't know. Seems like it'd be very similar to Raid. Do they display an event schedule in game yet, or do you have to save it in a PNG from a forum? It's on the Polarium launcher, which is specifically a PC thing. So if you only play on mobile, you don't get a in-game calendar. So no, which because it's like 90% of players.
To eat away like your core ability if you're trying to save those for, you know, like the next wave of enemies or something like that. So we've got some interesting stuff going on with the battle UI, but let me know what you think down below. Let's go into.
I think my major feedback for that is just the turn meter. I think the turn meter here is redundant, especially if you can get all characters that are here on screen at once, so you don't have to scroll. Even if it's just like, I don't know, across the top here. I don't know. I don't know if there is a solution for that. But I think if you have it here, it's redundant to have on the enemies. And it could just be like, if I'm playing on mobile and I'm, you know, 1.5 feet, 2 foot away from my screen, how big is this meter going to be? You know, this like tiny little square next to them. Am I going to be able to see how close they are to an ultimate? How will that inform my battle? If it was a bar underneath their health, I'd be able to see it a lot better.
Passive skill, got auto running, you can turn or something. Feel quite. We've got some interesting stuff going on with the battle UI, but let me know what you think down below. Let's go into gearing. So gearing is going to feel quite.
Okay, so for stats, we've got HP, attack, defense, speed, pretty normal. In it is initiative. Crit rate. This could be like dexterity. In it. Yeah, why isn't it just dexterity? Maybe it's too close to defense. DEX, DEF. Crit rate, crit damage, resistance, accuracy is all pretty normal. Except for in it. Is it because... Did they put that because 90% of the people who work at Fateless are Brits? That's just a joke. That's just a joke, innit?
Quite comfortable if you've played any of these style of games before, but we are trying to make sure that we've got really good, like search abilities, that type of thing. Annoyingly, I'm on Figma and you can't quite see, but we've made it so that you can search for, you know, if a stat is not on an item, for example, and filter that way, or basically different filtering options that make it as easy as possible to use. So let's just kind of like run through what's going on here. This
has 5 stats on it.
piece is Flawless Night Weave, Gauntlet of the Wolf. So the wolf is kind of like the set ability.
Okay, that's the name of the set. You can see it.
Flawless is the quality of the piece.
I think Flawless is like legendary.
And Nightweave is the kind of the matchup of a type of hero. So that will.
I don't know what that means. Maybe if you put that on a specific type of hero, it unlocks a different ability.
All come into your,
Seems like a lot of complexity right off the get.
you'll understand it in a minute. So what's going on? Wolf, this particular set will give you a set bonus if you have 2 of the same. This is one of our most basic sets in the game, but this one will give you extra attack. We could equip that here, and you can kind of see it go over as an enhanced ability. There's no cost to equip or unequip an item.
So I wanted 2 things out of this game: no energy and no cost to unequip gear or, you know, put new gear on or whatever. I got one of them. I'm totally happy. Totally happy. I can deal with energy. I deal with energy in every other game I play.
There is a cost in game, obviously, to enhance. So you'll enhance, you'll get.
I think Zenless does this pretty well.
To equip
where
or unequip an item.
There's 2 buttons. It's like level up this thing or level it up to the next stage. And Ray does this too with like a drop down that you like unlock, like level it up to level 4, level 8, level 12, you whatever. But Zenless just has a button that's like the next stage.
Cost in game, obviously, to enhance.
So it's not like an arbitrary like slider.
You'll enhance, you'll get additional stats. The way we're actually running stat growth, again, I'd love your feedback on this, is you actually see all of your stats going up with each roll. So you basically start to get a feel for whether it's going in the direction you want very early on, okay? And is it rolling into stats that you like? But ultimately, you're gaining stats across the board with each roll, which I think is quite cool. There is an ability to attune.
I wish you would demonstrate that.
Your item. You can only attune an item if it is the set that makes sense to the type of hero that you've got. So let's say you've got a tank, and you would attune plate mail, for example, to a tank, and you would gain additional stats for doing that.
Oh, that's sick.
And there will be a gold cost to do it. I'd say that's more of like an end game mechanic, because once you've attuned, that piece is going to lock to that hero.
Oh, so you can't use that piece on a different character.
So unless you pay to remove it. But it's kind of like cherry on top type of vibe for maxing out your
I don't like that.
build. That's the thinking here. So you'd only
have things cost currency to take off, or don't?
want to be going into attunement once you've got a piece that you think is going to be longer term for that hero. But as long as it's not attuned, totally free to move stuff
If anything, it should just cost its own currency to attune it.
around. No, it's free to move stuff around anyway, but we're trying to just make sure there's like an end game mechanic which really like tips it into the top quality area. So that's the kind of basics around gear. There's going to be about 20 odd sets. I think it's a bit more than 20, 22 sets, I think,
That's a lot
on
of
launch.
sets.
So a set throughout campaign, and then different sets in your dungeons. Some really interesting different like passive abilities that you'll get from your sets. So we tried to make it.
I think, and I hope that they have looked to Zenless, Hoyo games in general, like, you know, Star Rail and Genshin, but also Watcher Realms, and not so much Raid. The other 4 that I mentioned have such interesting gear sets. Like, so much more interesting than, you know, your speed goes up by 5% and your accuracy goes up by 5%. Like, the set bonuses and the sets are super, super interesting. And it looks like, yeah, it looks like it goes up to 6 in a set, because there's 6 pieces and then the weapon.
It really, really just as interesting and give you as much depth as possible while still being, you know, easy enough for a new player just to pick up. There will be like a auto-equip type of feature, which will equip gear that makes some sense for the hero that you're trying to build out.
Nice.
But obviously,
That's a big thing in Watcher Realms. It's like really good.
Will need to come from your own knowledge and brain. Okay, I think I covered everything on gear, or at least like the basics on gear. Let's go into weapons. We've got some interesting stuff going on with our weapon system. So again, I'm on a Figma.
This is the Forge of Wayland. So we were theorizing what that could be when we took a look at like the main screen. This is going to be, I guess, where you craft weapons and ascend them.
Thing here, so you can kind of I'd play through what's going on. The Forge of Wayland is where you'll be able to craft and empower and equip weapons. So there are different rarities of weapons, legendary, epic, and rare. So I can go into my collection here and see the different weapons I've got. So this is
I hope this is not final.
Excalibur, for example, and we can do different things. So I could kind of look through my collection.
Excalibur of Susano. And it's got... Is that King Tut? What the heck? What the heck? It's a bunch of different weapons here. I don't see Dagonet. Collection, refine, imprint, deconstruct.
Collection, I can't do it in this little tutorial thing, but to look through my collection here, I can refine my weapons, which is basically leveling them up. I can deconstruct my weapon. So basically what this is going to do is if I've got weapons that I don't need, I'll get some ore back, which will help me with the refinement. And then I can also imprint onto my weapon. So what does this mean? This is one of our mechanics, which I'm pretty excited about, actually. I think it's one of the kind of like standout features, which is going to create amazing amounts of depth in the game, awesome builds, like really fun combos. So I'm really excited for this. So what's going on? So you'd be able to select your weapon. You'd then be able to choose an imprint of a hero and imprint that hero onto a weapon to give them a new passive ability. So I'm just going to take you
Interesting.
through the kind of like style guide of how we got this going on here. So we have got attunement as well in weapons, but basically we have got a weapon which will have a like a passive ability on it, or an implicit, we're calling it here. And this is going to have some really cool effects as you're going through the game.
That comes
some
from
stats on weapons as well. You can then have any kind of like bonus info and imprint info, which we'll go through in a second, and you can enhance them. So different rarities of weapons will have kind of like different levels of implicit abilities. Just go bonus info.
Wait, there was the same
we'll go through
level
in a second, and you can enhance.
everything about these weapons is the same.
So
Oh, wait. This has bigger attunement? I don't know what's happening.
different rarities of weapons will have kind of like different levels of implicit abilities. Just go through an idea of how like a final weapon would look. So ultimately you would have your implicit and then your passive ability,
Oh,
which you
here
would
it
get
says
from a
imprint.
hero. So in this example here, at the start of each round, the hero gains a shield for 2 turns equal to 12% of this hero's max HP. That, as it stands right now,
Oh, it was probably just a placeholder.
is Leonidas's imprint. Okay, so how can you get an imprint? It's either a dupe hero that you don't need, that you convert into an imprint, or you can actually just earn imprints through different events and sort of farming within the game. So it becomes like a secondary cool feature really from our heroes, that you could have a Excalibur weapon on King Arthur, but with the imprint of a Zeus, for example. Ultimately endless like combos of cool stuff that you can do. I think what I'm most looking forward to is when people are using their rare heroes that they don't need to actually play with in game, and actually using those as imprints on cool weapons, because the passive just really fits what you're trying to do with a build.
Yeah, this ability really gives some longevity to rares, like rares and epics specifically, as long as the legendary character imprints aren't like a million miles better than the rare ones. Like, what if it's just, like, okay, you've got a defense character that gives you a shield every time you start, and it's a 12% shield if it's a rare, and a 15% shield if it's a epic, and then a 20% shield. I mean, the numbers could be the difference, or it could be unique to every character. Like this character gives specifically this thing to the weapon. But I think in order to keep it the most interesting and not like busted, is to have the epics and the rares matter more than legendaries. Like you want players to keep their legendaries and invest in the legendaries rather than like, oh, I just pulled Zeus. I know him imprinted on this weapon is going to catapult my account further than just having the Zeus. But even that's like an interesting choice. Yeah, I think there's like a big push in raid ever since like the epic the epic empowerment where you can combine multiple copies of epics to power one up. People want to do the same with rares, right? Because they've got a million rares. And at some point your account switches away from needing rares in any capacity to them just being chickens to feed for, other characters. Yeah, it could even be it could be like, a rare gets like a decent passive, or an epic gets maybe two decent passives, and then a legendary gives you like another active skill or something like that. Yeah, I imagine the rares, since most of the rares, as far as I'm aware, maybe all the rares are named people. I know the uncommons are just like, fodder, like Jackal and, Archer and things like that. I can't imagine. It might be something where like, yeah. It might be something where like they just they make a bunch, like 10 different rare passive effects that they can give to weapons by imprinting, and then they just assign those 10 to every rare. Like these 20 rares will give you this same passive. These 20 rares will give you this same passive. That kind of thing. And then epics get a little bit more unique, and then legendaries are wholly unique or something like that. Because give them all a stat range. Yeah. Make it random. That's exactly what we want. We want more randomness in our builds.
You can also attune weapons as well. So in a similar way to what I spoke about with gear, basically you get an attunement bonus, which will give you additional stats. Again, you would need to be able to attune to the right type of hero. So you'd have to be able to attune to someone within the right faction.
Oh, it shows you. So you start it up and you get a bonus. You attune it to the right faction and you get a bonus. This can be both, so you get both bonuses.
And then you would get the right stats. So anyone could use Excalibur, for example, but you can only attune Excalibur to someone in the Avalon faction. So to give you an idea. And yeah, I think that's kind of like the main breakdown. I'll just go through the armor elements as well. So we do have like a full
Wait.
Avalon faction. So to give you an idea. And yeah, I think that's kind of like the main breakdown. I'll just
Pauldrons.
go through the armor elements as well. So we do have like a full just additional breakdown here. Make sure I've covered everything off. Main stats, substats, bonus. Yeah, let's go through them here. So different rarities of armor. Ultimately, the rarity is depicted.
They will likely add like mythics or red gear. Watcher of Realms has red gear that's just like super duper extra good. Same with Raid.
By the name in our game, but you'll be able to see through colors which are easy recognizable alongside your heroes in terms of rarity as well. Just see if there's anything different here that you would need to know. As you level stuff up, you can see the rolls go right the way through your gear.
Yeah, so okay. So you start at level 0 and nothing has stat numbers in it. Level 4 and one stat has clearly become the focus, but everything goes up. Another jump up to 12 and you can see accuracy is way further. So that's clearly what this piece is focusing, and that's likely what it's going to be towards the end. But everything goes up. It's not just dead stats like 5 speed because it didn't roll any speed. That's pretty nice. I'm wondering how accurate this, like, you rolled a 4 and it's like, oh, I've seen that accuracy has jumped up to the second notch. Is that actually going to be the focus? You mean the jump from 4 to 12, you mean? Yeah, I'm wondering how something gets maxed, or if if that's truly random. Shit near doubles. Well, so it's level 4 to 12, which is probably a big jump in terms of gold. Um, but yeah, I mean the main stat almost doubles. The stat that it's focusing on doubles. Even all this stuff. Like clearly you're gonna want your gear to at least be level 12, probably before you make any actual decisions on it. But the fact that all stats go up is pretty nice. I'm just wondering how we can how much can we rely on what what stat is going to be the primary stat that the rolls are focusing, and when. Like, is it stage 4? That's when we really start seeing things, or do we have to wait till 8 or 12, where it's like, okay, this is confirmed the main stat. If I level this up to 16, speed isn't going to suddenly like shoot up way ahead.
And you kind of get a visual for.
Yeah. I agree. The the gradient colors here.
How strong the piece is until you get to the final roll, and it's like, okay, where are my stats gone? And then and you can attune it.
Oh, sure.
So I think I've covered
That's
everything off.
interesting.
Let me know what you think in the comments down below. That is a whistle-stop tour of gearing, weapons, and our battle UI. I've been Simon from Fateless. I'll see you soon. The imprint,
I'm super excited
into an
about
imprint you get from a hero.
the imprinting. Since there's only 4 characters on a team, like you're always going to want teams from or for various things, right? You're going to want a team for PvP, you're going to want a team for campaign, you're going to team for farming or for this dungeon or for clan boss or whatever. You're always going to need a bunch of teams, right? But there's definitely a point where you've got too many characters and you've you know, let's come back to the character screen. You've awakened your character, and they talked about this before, where you can, just like in other games, you like put characters into a character. I think that's how you awaken them. Maybe I'm misremembering. Whatever. Combining characters to like make them more powerful. Whatever. So say you have extras or whatever. Yeah. And like you said, imprints don't have to be just duplicates of characters that you have. It can just be like, oh, I got this rare. I don't plan on building this rare, but I know that it'll give me a good passive here. Here you go. I'm wondering if you can redo the imprinting, or like undo it, because if I've got a really sweet weapon, and let's see, where's it? If I've got a really sweet weapon and I've maxed it out and it's on my like main damage dealer, and I only put like a rare in the imprint, and I get an epic that I think would be better, but that I don't need. I wonder what it would cost to change it if there's like one of these currencies to change it, or anything, or if it's just like you lose that rare, and that's the cost. Isn't a copy of the character, but it worked like one for upgrading. That might be. So my yeah, I guess it's not clear if imprinting is like if that consumes the character. Um, yeah. And it's not something that you necessarily have to pull or buy or whatever. You do get it from events. That seems to me like it's going to be like an essence type thing. Like you get the essence of Zeus to put in a weapon or whatever. But if you already have Zeus, do you get to imprint him into all your weapons or one? Or does it consume the character? Or can you like unimprint and your character comes back and he's back in your inventory of character or your collection of characters? Like how does that work? That's what I'm really really interested in. Because like if it's a rare and it's like, oh, you can imprint something over top of it and that rare's gone forever, like whatever, that doesn't matter. But if it's an epic, you might want that epic back. Or you might not want to imprint the epic because you know it's going to be gone. I guess that's not it's not so clear what exactly is going on. Imagine raid giving dupes you didn't have to roll or pay for. It's like, yeah, so like any of the Hoyo games, if there's like a special event going on, you'll get a special weapon, but you only get one. But there's a mechanic in the game where you can combine weapons of the same name to like make them more powerful. But you only get one of these weapons, so they give you like this generic essence to like level it up. And it's super nice, and you like, it's totally optional. But it'd be really nice to have like, oh, it's a Halloween event, so we've got the Headless Horseman essence, and it's like a special event thing. You can only get this essence here, and it's like themed or something like that. I feel like there's tons of room there. I'm liking that they went with. I think it looks like it's up to 6 per. If we're to extrapolate information based off of one set, it seems like there are going to be sets at the very least that immediately benefit from having 6 of the same type rather than 2, 2, 2, like 3 sets of 2. You can have a set of 2, a set of 4, or a set of 6, or 3 sets of 2 of different types to get different bonuses. I really like games that have 6 as their number of gear. I think 5 as a number of gear is pretty bad. And I like that weapons are just totally different from gear. Like you're going to notice when a character doesn't have a weapon on, but it's just an added layer of like, hey, my Thor is different from your Thor because I've got the Excalibur imprinted with Musashi, whatever. I think this is super great. I was super hyped when this video came out. Even more excited to see that there's not going to be any cost to removing gear. Still sad that there's energy, but like I said, we can deal with energy. All right. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. And I'll leave a link to this video in the description if you want to go give them some love as well. Follow the Fateless channel. Join the Discord. It just hit 60,000 people on YouTube, subscribers on YouTube. That's crazy. And every time we hit a milestone, we as a community get like a bunch of leaks. So we want to keep hitting milestones. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Bye.